Hello there, and welcome to a super exciting episode of Executive Wellness Unplugged. So, most everyone I think will be able to relate to today's episode, as we are going to be discussing with my esteemed panel how to optimize our mind, our body, and our overall health through daily movement. To that end, today I have the privilege of interviewing Ashley Tappin and Kari Gearhart, two industry leaders who know a thing or two about inspiring and helping leaders achieve peak performance through fitness and healthy lifestyle habits. Now, as an executive wellness coach myself, a workplace wellness course provider, a nutritionist, and personal trainer, I have been eagerly awaiting this discussion. So, by way of introduction, Ashley Tappin is a consultant with Insigniam, with her background in sports television, customer service, sales, and leadership development. And she has a unique perspective on what it takes for teams of business professionals to deliver breakthrough results. She has worked with Fortune 500 business executives to fulfill their visions across the globe for over 25 years in industries including fast-moving consumer goods, healthcare systems, biotech, pharma, manufacturing, research, and nonprofits. Wow. And Ashley is passionate about developing leaders to experience breakthroughs for themselves and their businesses. And her ability to develop and lead organizational transformations that lead to unprecedented results has earned her several accolades, including recognition as a rising star and a luminary of the Healthcare Businesses Women's Association. And before joining Insigniam, Ashley managed, built, and led training in leadership and high performance at a competitive telecommunications company. And
in Canada.
There you go. Yay, Canada. And she's attended Indiana University, where she received her BA while cycling competitively. Oh, I'm getting tired just reading all your achievements. And she's a former triathlete coach, published author, writing about fitness as a tool to develop one's leadership. Well, that's impressive. And I'm sure just equally impressive. Kari Gearhart is a leading development professional with a lifelong passion for staying fit and healthy. Early in her career, she worked as a registered dietitian in various healthcare settings and became more passionate about how lifestyle choices make a difference in determining a person's quality of life. Now, she completed her master's in exercise physiology and a certified positive psychology practitioner. And she's led training and development functions in 3 large healthcare corporations for 25 years and is a recognized catalyst for guiding leaders towards reaching their full potential. In 2016, she established her own company, The Performance Bridge, where she offers her services as a skilled workshop facilitator. And she credits many aspects of her career success to lessons she learned through participating in triathlons for more than 20 years. And this experience inspired her to create a highly rated program called Fit to Lead and a recently published book, Reach, Using Fitness to Grow Your Leadership, which incidentally she co-authored and developed with Ashley. So the program and book focus on using fitness as a forum for growing leadership capabilities. Again, equally impressive there. So I think we're in for a really great interview and discussion here. And it's going to be more of a discussion, not an interview. So I want to start, as I like to do with all of my podcast episodes, just to get to know you guys a little bit more. And in the context of what we're talking about today, right, around, leadership and fitness and how they support each other. How do you both stay active and leverage the discipline and resilience built through your fitness endeavors to meet your professional demands? And maybe in answering that, can you perhaps provide our listeners with an example of maybe a fitness challenge you faced and how you overcame it, and how that really helped inform the work you do now with leaders? So whoever would like to start with that.
Ash, you want to go first?
Sure. So as you mentioned, Lisa, I've been a consultant for the better part of 25 years. And what that entails is being in front of many different groups and individuals and traveling around to clients. And that takes an amount of focus and discipline to have first just the physicality to,
For
anymore
sure.
through I always celebrate when I get through TSA, going through all those, I call this my, putting the suitcase into the overhead,
Good
exercise.
tricep exercise. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's all about being fit to travel, fit to be in front of people, prepared and disciplined. And, my fitness feeds that, and my work feeds, the discipline I bring to my fitness. So they just really feed each other in being able to provide value for clients.
Is there a
And also
non-negotiable sorry, but can I add, is there a non-negotiable you have each day in terms of you have to do it with respect to fitness or a healthy lifestyle habit?
Well, when I'm on the road, one of the things that so I've learned over the years, and also as I've gotten older, which is one of the fitness challenges, I would say, that I've had to deal with. My first day on the road, I try not to eat red meat because it takes longer to digest, and I usually don't sleep as good on the first night. So, and I don't drink on the first night because because it's kind of hard to sleep because you're on the road, you're by yourself. It can be like, I miss my family, or I'm a little, it's nerve-wracking sometimes being on the road. So I try to have little guidelines that I live by when I'm traveling so that I have better health, and therefore I'm more equipped to do the work that I'm there to do.
Yeah, well, it's nice too to be able to walk to talk, and we're going to talk about that, right? In just a few minutes. Thank you so much. And Kari.
Very similar to Ashley. I have always had this passion for staying physically fit. I think it probably started with, my interest in nutrition as a registered dietitian and so forth, and realizing it wasn't just what you eat, but also how you move your body. So it's a non-negotiable for me. I try to do something physical if it's in, the realm of possibilities. Even when I travel, I'll, take the stairs instead of the escalator kind of thing, wherever I can, because it's not always about going to the gym. But for me,
I'm glad. Can I just say, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because we're going to talk about that, right? And sometimes it's like, well, if I don't go to a gym, I've busted my day as far as fitness. So yeah, thank you for that. Carry on.
Yeah, you can always fit it in somewhere.
Yeah.
Versus sitting, things like that. But it's a major stress reliever for me, and it's also a creative outlet. And so a lot of times, and we'll talk about our program, we emphasize that it's not do my work and work out. They are, they kind of feed each other. So for instance, if I'm having a bad day, I take a walk. If I'm trying to kind of clear my head or think of something creative, and I know this is true for Ashley too, swimming. Especially when we're not like doing a hard workout, getting ready for a race or something like that, but just that swimming motion, running, walking. There's some brain, neurology, all the things that happen in your brain when you're exercising that feed that. But I've come up with some of my most clear, creative ideas, swimming or biking or running. So I use it as not only to stay physically fit, but as a tool.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I think probably 90% of my business was created when I was walking or biking or doing something that I'm disconnected from a device, right? Because the ideas percolate, right? And it doesn't happen necessarily when we're glued to this device in front of us, right? So yeah, good things that you've both mentioned, and good practices here. So I'm really curious now and we're going to talk more about this, but what led you to work together as consultants? How did you even meet, and what led you to integrating fitness and leadership? I just think that's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those kismet connections. Ashley and I were at a conference, actually the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association, which was mentioned in Ashley's bio, sitting in the front row of a breakout. And, we did the typical, how are you? What do you do? We both found out we were in the leadership development profession, that we were both volunteering for CA. And Ashley had, I think, just recently finished a women's triathlon, all women's triathlon. And found out I did triathlon. So, of course, that bubbled up a whole conversation. But what Ashley appreciated when she walked away from that race, I'm speaking for you, you can add later, but I always do this intro part, is the exuberance of the women, including herself, coming across that finish line. And I think because we're in this leadership space, she's like, there's so many connections of what it takes to do a swim, bike, run, for those who are listening, not familiar with the triathlon, and to be a leader, present and creative and managing resilience and all that kind of stuff. So we started chatting. We're like, oh yeah, this could be something that we build into the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association, because that association is all about raising women up into the C-suite in the healthcare
Right.
profession. And so ultimately it evolved in us going, let's do something together. She worked with a colleague who was like, let's call it Fit to Lead. And that became the name of the program, which we ran for several years. So I'll let Ashley pick up and add.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add is the reason it came up for me in a women's forum, if you will. So I had been doing some triathlons before that, but it was my first all women's triathlon. And they had a mentoring program, and I got really excited about the difference that fitness can make for women in their lives, whether they're a leader in their church or a leader at work or just the leader of their family, right? And so I wanted to be able to mentor other women in this realm, no matter what their sport was. But, Kari and I were both into triathlons, and we got the degree to which it was transformational for some women. Like, we had athletes in our program who learned to swim.
Wow.
Just to do a triathlon. Did not swim.
Yeah.
Learn to swim.
Nice.
To do a triathlon.
Yeah. That's impressive.
When you come across a line after doing that kind of thing, you're not the same person.
And I would probably expect or suspect maybe that they were women, more mature women, maybe necessarily, who really are goal driven and set a goal that I'm going to do this sort of thing at this stage of my life. Was that perhaps true or not?
It was a variety. We
was
had
it? Okay.
young and old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
We had professionals in their 20s and in their 50s.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
so
just the possibilities that they were able to see after doing something like this and making that connection meant a lot to Kari and I.
So how, and we'll probably touch on this in a bit, but because I really don't want to miss on this point, excuse me. How might achieving a goal such as learning to swim, competing in a triathlon, how did that inform or inspire for those who maybe work in professional capacities or leaders? How did that support their work and achieving their professional goals? Could you comment on that, or did you witness any of that or hear any testimonials?
Yeah, go ahead, Kari, and then I'll.
Yeah, we love talking about this. So we're like, So I think, again, one of those kind of ahas that Ashley had when she saw them. Well, first of all, I had been doing, when I met her, triathlons for 13 years. And I always found that people were like, when I come into work, I'd already had a swim or bike or whatever. And I'd get up at 5:30 in the morning so I could get to my job at 8. People were like, how do you do that kind of thing? But then it was just something I knew I wanted to do. But it wasn't until I had that conversation at that conference with Ashley, I was like, yeah, what I do in my training is feeding me as a leader. I can show up with more energy. I'm healthier, but it also taught me that for me to do that kind of stretch sport, and I was in my 40s when I did my first one.
Wow.
It required me to get really clear on what I wanted, have a vision, if you will, really be clear on my priorities so I could get that time in the morning to work out and get to work. So we use in the book a wheel of life, to go, there's all these things that you have to manage in your life, your finances, your career, your learning, your family, your et cetera, your fun. So where are you in satisfaction with all of those? And what do you need to shift so that you can maybe do something like a triathlon in your life? So, I was already doing that, and I kind of innately, and I was like, oh, wow, right. And then setting goals so that I could swim the distance, et cetera, and setting goals at work so I could achieve what I needed to do at my job, and having a support system. I happened to have my husband who did them with me. So he was
nice.
The lovely thing that we did with the Fit to Lead program is this community of women supported each other. They were mentors, coaches, they could relate to, the days when they were tough and the days that they succeeded and share that.
Yeah.
All these parallels, they work both ways. So you're strengthening muscle on both sides. When you're working, it's not these separate activities. It's I'm building goals, I'm achieving goals, I'm building a community. It's helping me stay fit.
Yeah.
Same kind of conversation on the work spot. So
And I would suspect, just for our listeners, everything we're talking about applies to men and women, right? We're not just speaking
Yes,
just to the women
absolutely.
group, right?
Yes.
And I know that. I just want to state that for the record, I guess, just to be sure and clear. But yeah, no, and just before we move on, I'm a fitness trainer or whatever, and I'm just not a morning exerciser. It just doesn't work for me. I tried many times. I just get too tired. My time is in the afternoon or early evening. Excuse me. Excuse me. So what would you say to someone who's thinking, like, they're hearing about all the morning rituals, and we hear the elite athletes do something in the morning? Like, what would you speak to her? How would you comment on that if you're not a morning person?
Ashley, you want to take that? I have some comments,
I
but please.
mean, yeah, I would say that you got to do what works for you. And it might take, it's an easy out to do it in the morning
Yeah.
because kind of everybody's asleep. So
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
bother me.
Yeah.
So my son and my husband are asleep. My work colleagues are mostly asleep,
Yeah.
or they're at the gym as well. So that's kind of just an easy one, but
Yeah.
so it might take something for you to get out at lunch or I don't want to have to put my makeup
Yeah.
on twice, but
Right. Yeah, that's true.
so yeah, so it takes something to get it in and make sure that it doesn't get skipped.
Yeah.
But if you are rigorous, not rigid, but rigorous about making sure that people know when you're on, when you're not, and how they can reach you, or
Yeah.
what, then you can make it happen. And
Yeah.
if you're consistent, then people will learn.
Right. And it will become habitual for you as well, right? As a person.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
can absolutely work out when it works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving a little further then, and we've touched on this maybe, but just to elaborate, and maybe Ashley, you might want to start with this one. Can you describe in more detail perhaps how fitness, being healthy, plays a role in developing strong leadership qualities and overcoming professional challenges? And maybe even, if there's an experience or a story that comes to mind, but something that's a little more than just, surface of what we might, already know, right? Is there just really drilling into that? How does being healthy and fit, and again, from experience, personal or with a client, how does it really serve and support, strong leadership qualities and overcoming, say, professional challenges?
Mhm. Well, I think that fitness plays a big role in enabling a leader to have the energy, the focus, and the discipline they need to be a top performing leader. Um, Mass Mutual did a survey almost 10 years ago now, but they surveyed top executives, and asked them if they had been introduced to any kind of sports when they were growing up. And 60% of C-level executive women, this happened to be a survey about women, said that they had done some kind of competitive sport. The Billie Jean King Foundation has gone on to do surveys of all athletes about, but there are sub findings about, girls being introduced to sports and the impact that makes on their learning and development in the areas of science and math and like that. So sports and some aspect of sports, I don't care if you're a walker, you're a Pilates person, you're a triathlete, you're a marathoner, it doesn't matter. It will develop an energy to be able to go to those top echelons of performance, whether you're an account manager or you're a COO. And we had all of those in our programs. So the energy, the focus to figure out what it is that you want to do. So, executives have to focus on what's going to, serve their organizations. And, a woman and men have to focus on what's going to serve their families or what's going to serve
And
their
can we also
community.
maybe just quickly talk about the benefits to sleep and the benefits to stress mastery and the release of endorphins and things that we kind of know, but we forget. And I know personally, if I could just share a quick little story, I did a 60-day challenge to sort of get me back into going to the gym regularly because I had a little bit of a lapse. And it was quite a commitment, you know, and there was days I didn't know what. I just literally dragged my buns to the gym, right? But man, oh man, the endorphin release, I felt like it decreased my appetite. I was sleeping better, you know, and I'm postmenopausal, so you know, we all know what maybe if you're going through that or you know what happens there, right? So yeah, anything you can comment or maybe Kari, would you like to take it on and just further, you know, speak to your experience or with clients in terms of the you know, the additional benefits of exercise and aside from leadership, but how, again, getting a better night's sleep supports us in our leadership roles and what have you.
Yeah, well, I mean, gosh, there's so much to say there. I mean, certainly, we all know what cortisol is, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
what is it? A stress
Neurotrans,
hormone,
yeah,
basically, you know,
neurotransmitter, or yeah,
fight and
yeah,
flight kind of thing that helps us,
yeah,
you know, run away from tigers, you know,
yeah,
back in caveman days. But that's one of those things that, you know, if we want to manage stress, whether it's in our executive roles or leadership roles of any capacity, and whether we're exercising, you know, again, it's one of those muscles,
yeah,
right? If we're able
yeah,
to manage stress and we have lots of stories, right, where we had a stressful situation when we were competing or training, um,
right,
and that ability to overcome and calm the nervous system in those situations goes, I can do it there,
yeah,
that muscle,
yeah.
I can do it in
And it
this situation.
has long-lasting residual effects as well, right? It's not just in the moment. I mean, it carries us through the week. So it's like if we exercise on Monday, even if we didn't exercise Tuesday and Wednesday, and we had a stressful situation Wednesday or Thursday, we still get that long-term residual effects if we got a regular thing going on with our exercise, right?
And I just made notes of these because I don't keep these on the top of my head, but I
Yeah,
know that they're important. So
sure.
things like, maybe a lot of the listeners will know this, but it's nice to be reminded,
Yeah,
you know, that
yeah.
exercise increases your heart rate, which pumps oxygen to the brain. That's a
Mm-hmm.
good. Aids release of hormones, which provide a superior environment for growth of brain cells.
Right.
Okay. Helps brain function better by improving neuroplasticity. I love that name. And
Yeah,
the ability of the brain to grow and to
yeah.
change by increasing this thing called brain-derived neurotropic factor. We talk about this in the book. So that boosts that learning and memory of the
Mm-hmm.
brain. I'm
Yeah,
thinking, wow, it's not just building muscles and endurance and your heart pumping, it's your brain. And boy,
right.
is your brain important for right everything, everything we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Nice. Yeah, very much. Anything you want to add there, Ashley?
I think it also helps people to be strategic. You know, our book
Mm,
takes you through a step by step of, you know, why do you want to do something? What will fulfill that vision? How do you want to get it done? And you know, what's the entire journey? So I just think that planning out your fitness goals in life
mm-hmm.
help you also be strategic in other areas of your life. So that's
Yeah.
the area it's helped
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. And so like going a little deeper now into this, like what then might typically stand in the way of leaders incorporating movement and wellness practices into their lives and daily routines? And I got a few follow-up questions, but let's just start with that. Who would like to take that
You
one?
know, it's the old adage of I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it goes back to what Ashley was referencing, and we've kind of mentioned already, is getting really clear on what's important in your life. And we love the wheel of life because
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
whenever we put that in like a workshop setting, whether it's
Yeah.
men or women, we've had
Yeah.
men in the
It's
program. So it's
you'll see
like,
I use
oh,
it a lot. You'll see the light bulbs go off, right, with your
and they're
clients.
like, oh, wow, I really never gave myself a moment to like assess all of the components.
Yeah.
And no wonder I'm feeling stressed because I'm trying to get, and we always say it's not about getting all tens in all areas.
Yeah.
About, you know, your satisfaction, what has to shift. And we even have in our
Right.
what you're not going to do, which is as important as what you're going to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ashley, add.
Um, you know, really that either or mindset, you know, that people think it's just not possible to do, to be, you know, busy and like take the kids to all these different sports and have a high-powered job and take care of your family. That you really just have, you know, like you were saying about the time of day, you just really have to find a way and make it a priority.
Right.
I have a friend who is a high-powered executive, and she's executing right now a great big finance and HR transformation in a huge company. And it's easy for her to think that it's not, she doesn't have time for that right
Right.
now. And the impact I can see from her mostly not tapping into taking care of herself physically through some practice, whether it's yoga, meditation, swimming, whatever, or
Yeah.
walking.
Yeah.
Is that she loses her cool with a lot of frequency, and she's gained weight, and she's not at her best the way she wants to be.
Yeah.
And so she's not going to perform at her, or she'll perform at work, but she won't have energy left to hang out with her kids when
And she probably realizes this, but it's a bit of a vicious cycle where it's trying to get out of that and get off that treadmill of life, right?
Yes.
And get back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what can we do or suggest to them to get more movement in their day? And that may, be a micro step or a building block to then maybe eventually going into becoming, a triathlete, right?
Yeah. I think there's so many ideas, and they can be small and effective. So walking meetings. So
yes,
you know everyone's face. You can still do a Zoom if you need to, or a conference call, and do a walk. If the meeting is conducive for that kind of situation. Before a meeting starts, just have everyone take a stand and stretch. It might seem silly at first, but
just even doing a shoulder roll, right? Just doing rolling your shoulders.
Yeah. A lot of times when I do Zoom workshops, I'll go, okay, let's just all take some nice box breaths.
Yeah.
And I always hear this, and I say, how was that? And people are like, thank you for that, because they're literally, they don't realize they're kind of uptight and tense. And it's that simple thing. Taking the elevator, taking the steps instead of the elevator kind of thing. And if you are in your office or building or at the airport or wherever you're going, Ashley, I'm sure you can pile on. There's lots of other things.
I would pile on with wear my running shoes through the airport. So, not suffer,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
One thing, water.
Absolutely. One thing I like to do is I have little exercise stations all around my house. So I have mats and I have a big stability ball. I have little hand weights or stretch bands. So I would suggest even keeping some stretch bands handy, so you can open up that upper thoracic, right? I like to keep a big ball because I have a lower back issue. So I actually almost cured, not 100%, but close to it, my back issue by getting on my ball and doing inversions on my big ball. And that just opens up my lumbar. So little things like that, it takes a minute or two, right? But it forces you up, and, having that stretch band, just maybe taking a minute, to do a 4-7-8 box breath, right? Like you said, whatever. It's micro step. Yeah, go ahead.
I think, one of the things that is so important is having some accountability.
Yeah.
So, if you have a leader or you are a leader listening to this and going, okay, I'm going to feel silly starting a meeting, doing some of this stuff, but people will welcome it. It'll hold you accountable. So, I can imagine myself in my days of working in corporate saying, okay, guys, I'm off the wagon. I need to get back on. One of the things I'd like to do is stand part of the meeting. Who's in with me? And then they can hold you accountable. So,
do you know what I love about what you just said there? I'm going to just jump in, because what I love about what you just said is you said, I need this. So it's not like I want us as a team, like we have to do this sort of thing. I need it. Would you be so kind as to, help me and support me and doing it along with me, right? And people always want to be helping, right? So that's a great way of introducing that, right?
Yeah, and keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Yeah. Any other thoughts come to mind, Ashley, around some strategies or quick little tips that, because executives love little quick hits, right? Little quick wins. So anything else that could be
sharing with your team, or your book club, or whoever, depending on what you do, sharing with them what you're working on.
Yeah.
And then just making it part of the conversation that, this group has, is that we talk about, I'm training for a marathon, or I'm trying to increase my upper body strength, or I'm trying to just, feel healthier and get outside more.
Yeah, that's a great icebreaker. Hey, like for an executive team or whomever, a manager leading their team to just, and I'm all about, and we talk about this in my book, Cultivating Healthy and Vibrant Workplaces, how to, and I'm sure you do maybe in your book, is, in leading meetings, like great icebreakers might be, and a way to get to know your employees and build in wellness into our work lives, right? Is just say, like, what'd you do this week to support your well-being? Just a simple question, and go around the room, right? Simon Sinek is really great. He does I talk about it in my book also. He does a huddle, and he really gets into, not invasive, but, really interesting questions, and being interested in his team, and how can I support your well-being, sort of thing, right? And everyone loves talking. Most people love talking about their health and well-being, right? And learning from each other and getting that inspiration. So I think that's a great way to maybe start a team meeting, right? Yeah. And then
essentially even just making people accountable, like if they have like a weekly meeting, if you will.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to take turns and, bring an idea of how they can stay more active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have clients who call that a well-being moment, and they take turns.
Yes. Cool. Yeah. Because it doesn't have to be the team leader or CEO leading that discussion, right? For sure. A story comes to mind too about starting a meeting. A mindfulness expert was brought in to a group of executives, and he was teaching them on mindfulness, supposedly. And so he sat down, and they all congregated and got started with the session, and he just was like dead silence. You could hear crickets. And this went on for maybe seemed like eternity to the executives, but it might have been just like a minute or two. And someone piped up, said, "Oh, you can start at any time." And he said, "Oh, I started 2 minutes ago." Right? In other words, like, mindfulness doesn't have to be sitting there in lotus pose with our fingers, right? It's just sitting there, just very calm, right? And that's just another thing that, a takeaway there. Mm-hmm. Any other stories or examples come to mind of those you've worked with who, leveraged, their exercise and fitness habits to really help master their stress or maintain that, emotional stability in their high pressure jobs, and if you will, right?
Gosh, there are a bunch. Ashley, do you want to go first? I'm trying to think
a lot of people since the pandemic have chosen to transition into other jobs or out of jobs. And I have, many friends who did that. And so creating new practices like a walking practice or a going to the gym practice or something helped them transition into whatever was next and out of whatever they were leaving. So that's one thing that I've observed with a lot of people these days.
Right. Yeah. And I think maybe working from home, I know I see people, I don't take a device or phone when I'm out walking because I just like to be in touch with nature, but no judgment. Some people do, and that's great. And it may be they're doing a walking meeting, right? Yeah. But, or maybe listening to, meditation music or what have you. It's just, a podcast, right? Like this one.
I mean, the other one and we just did a workshop on this a few weeks ago, and the group it was a small group, ages from just graduated from college to the person that Ashley was just talking about, kind of like going, okay, I think I'm done corporate, but I'm not sure. I'm not like finished, but I want to do something else, kind of thing.
Right.
And our whole conversation was, one of our chapters in the book is around, building your team to thrive.
Yes.
And, the pandemic, of course, has added this whole different perspective and challenge, because what we used to kind of take for granted, walking down, talking at the water cooler, going to lunch kind of thing, isn't as simple.
Yeah.
So we, kind of talked about not only how important, and we, of course, make a sports analogy, right? If you're familiar with bike racing,
right.
This whole concept of drafting and how that, I think it reduces the wind resistance like by 27 or something % when you've got someone in front. And it's a strategy to help, the riders win.
Nice.
The team's helping that ultimate rider, win the race, kind of thing, by reducing the resistance. So the same kind of concept when you've got this network of people. And I think, we started out in our conversation, it's not about handing business cards out. It's about high quality connections.
Right.
Thinking about who are the people in your network, who's supporting you from a fitness perspective, who's supporting you from your ultimate next job, who's supporting you in that transition next to out of corporate into whatever that is next. And so it really got all of those people. The college graduate was like, I have college friends, but I'm not sure I have the network I need to find the career I want to pursue. And there was a person who's like, I'm done with my job, but all my connections, and this was my situation. When I left my corporate job, I looked at LinkedIn. It was all the people I worked with or contracted with.
Oh.
It really wasn't filled with the people that would help me, move to my next transition. And so I got to work on that, and we had to be very deliberate. But I think with COVID, we've kind of settled back and lost connection with
Yeah.
some of the important people that will help with that drafting strategy, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, you know, again, it's that parallel. You need people to support you in your fitness and help you keep going. Same with where you are in your career and what kind of goals you have to achieve.
Yeah. We talk about in our programs, you know, getting a wellness buddy. We actually have a program around how to set up wellness buddy programs in an organization. But to that point, I mean, you know, I often, my husband is my accountability buddy because we both try and be accountable to each other. Did you go to the gym today? Or did you go for a walk? Or are you eating healthy? Or did you do your points on your app today? Or whatever the case may be, right? Yeah. So Ashley, again, any other comments before we move on there? Because, well, while you're thinking about that, maybe you'll touch on that, but in this next one, but what role or responsibility should organizations play in encouraging leaders? Now, I know this is a little, you know, sensitive topic, right? We don't want to be a nanny state over our employees, right? But, you know, what role should organizations play in encouraging leaders to incorporate fitness or maybe movement and healthy practices into their lives?
So I'll answer both questions. So the first, about one of the things that I noticed when I shared my love of sports, you know, whatever I was into at the time, whether it was running or Pilates, is that I always found somebody who was interested, and it gave us a chance to get to know each other in a way that we wouldn't have.
Nice.
So even when I wasn't working for someone, you know, like Kari was just talking about high quality connections, like when I had running friends, you know, if I wanted to get into an industry, I could like say, hey, you're in finance. Can we go for a run and talk about it? I want to learn more about it. Right.
Nice.
So it gave us just all kinds of different dimensionality in our relationships, which is, you know, builds the quality. And then, so one of the things that I would say that a corporation could do to encourage fitness practice is to model it. So have the leaders model it by going for walking meetings, or, you know, having a running group that the, you know, the high level execs participate in. You know, Kari and I did a triathlon in Philadelphia for several years that was sponsored by Johnson & Johnson, and Alex Gorski, the CEO, would participate in the triathlon. And I would often, it was hilarious because, you know, I saw him more, we saw each other more in our bathing suits than we did in suits.
And I bet on some way that maybe had dividends or
it's a great leveler. Nobody looks good with the swim cap.
Absolutely. You're not intimidated to pick up or email, hey, you know, and they got that pipeline.
You know what? I'm not a C-level person.
Right.
Or, you know, I've not done that, but I tell you, Alex remembered me every time he saw me. I bet.
Well, you know, all that,
created something. We'd participated in something that we both shared. And I think that that's a way that leaders can, in a very pleasant way, encourage people to use these things. You know, it could also be other areas of mastery, like music. You know, you see companies have bands all the time.
Yeah.
So fitness is just another way to build dimensionality in your relationship
and hone a culture, right, within the organization. And what a better culture than to have a wellness culture, which of course we talk a lot about in our programs. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the walking the talk part is so key. And Alex was just a you know, the epitome of doing that. And he, you know, they had triathlon outfits. I mean, they got all into it, kind of thing.
Yeah,
it was celebratory as a company and brought them together, kind of thing. So, and a great leveler too. I mean,
yeah, and I'm just gonna jump right into the next question. That's a good segue into the next question. But before I do that, I want to ask you, or just even put it out there to our listeners and to yourselves. A lot of professionals, especially those who are consultants, what have you, and even people, you know, within an organization as a leader, are part of business networking groups, right? So it just occurred to me there's perhaps, I would think, possibly some business networking groups out there that have a fitness element to it, or, you know, so you know, you can get in there and get your fitness network and, you know, build those relationships and contacts, right? So for our listeners, right, maybe look for that have a built-in element of fitness. And I'm sure if there's not one out there, then maybe someone can start one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
really
for sure. Yeah. So, So the other thing I want to talk about, and I think Kari, you just, alluded to it, is, the leading by example, and those who've read our book, or maybe in the future, and maybe I'm sure you talk about it in your book as well, Reach. The whole concept of leading by example, we reference it. It's very similar. A term we use in the book is demonstrating visible permission. So, for example, a leader who's shown strapping up their sneakers and going out for a walk as opposed to the back-to-back meetings during their lunch break or whenever, that's demonstrating that visible permission to employees or to managers that, this CEO is doing it, then it's inspiring, but it also gives that permission that we want you to take care of yourselves. And what would you say then in terms of, how would you comment on the leading by example or demonstrating visible permission? Any thoughts? And do you know of leaders or organizations that make that a priority of any, that you've worked with? And whoever would like to answer that.
Well, I've observed that they make it a priority by building world-class gyms in their corporate headquarters.
Oh, nice.
So that they make it easier for you to pay attention to your fitness. So that's one way to do it.
And is that still happening today? Do you know if that's, because I know back in the day, but do organizations, especially the larger ones, are they still making that a priority to your knowledge? Yeah. Okay, good.
And you see the executives working out.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think
nice.
the other one that we had the pleasure of working with a rather large international company for men and women. They already had a program. It was called Win for, or it's still called Win for Youth. It based around a triathlon, but it could be any sport. But this, as an example, they'd been running this program for years, selecting, I guess, typos, right, Ashley? People who they wanted to be.
People, you have to apply.
They had to apply, they had to get in, and they were for 6 months groomed, no matter what their fitness level was, to do this triathlon in Spain, Lanzarote, race there, an Olympic one, and not an easy one. And so Ashley had this, talk about networking, had this great conversation with someone in their HR area, and they were like, that's brilliant. You do a leadership program that supports fitness? And we're like, yes. So for several years, we connected our leadership pieces, which are basically the chapters in our book, to that 6-month training program for the
nice.
Yeah, and what their goal was it was also a fundraiser organization. So that was also a wonderful way for the organization to contribute beyond their walls of their corporation. But it said, one, leaders, these people are going to be leaders in our organization. When they finish this triathlon, they're going to be ambassadors and represent not only this program for future people who participate, but also in a bigger way.
Right.
And I believe, I think might be a little gratuitous to us, but I think by adding the leadership layer to just quote unquote training for a triathlon,
right,
there was a bigger impact to these individuals.
Oh, without question. Yeah.
And we're LinkedIn with some
Are you able to comment on what organization this was, or?
EWU. They're a services firm.
I'm sorry, could you say the name again? I didn't quite hear it.
EWU.
Yep. Okay, nice. Well, good on you, EWU. Yeah.
We LinkedIn with several of the people, and they continue, of course, to talk about going on not only to bigger fitness things, but how they're making this connection and so forth, of course, which gives us satisfaction that
I love hearing stories like this, and I tell you why. It's because one of my concerns, and I work with a lot of HR and workplace wellness leaders through our different programs and certification programs. And, coming out of the pandemic, we're like really trying to find our way now. Are we going to work remote? Are we going to work, hybrid? Are we going to go fully back on site? Right. And now layered over that is the whole AI, right? Phenomenon when HR are trying. So saying all that is my concern is sometimes that the well-being of our employees is taking a little bit of a backseat because there's so many other, we're in crazy times. We're always in crazy times, but it just seems like we're on, we're in a VUCA 2.0 or 3.0 environment right now, right? And anyways, I just, coming back to your story there, Kari, with EWU, I just love hearing of organizations who are still making this a priority, right? And I implore everyone listening to go to your organization, say, what are we doing to care for the well-being of our employees? Have we dropped the ball? And what can we do?
I observe a lot of companies having efforts like this, especially post-pandemic and the war for talent, like some talent's just choosing not to be part of and so I see a lot of that posted on LinkedIn. And I think that it's an effort to engage people.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, yeah, because the millennials, I mean, I've been hearing, and through my research, my book and programs, and they're going to HR and they're saying, or in these interviews, like, some of their first questions are, how do you care for the well-being of your employees? Do you support work-life integration, work-life harmony, right? Yeah, absolutely. So this has been fascinating. Any final thoughts or questions? Anything that we, want to add or put a plug in for that we haven't yet?
Gosh, I mean, first of all, we want to thank you for bringing us on.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Opportunity to talk about one of our favorite topics.
Yeah, me too. What level of service are you either independently or providing right now related to what we've been discussing here today for the benefit of our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, our favorite offering that we love to get out there, and our book was one of those ways to try to, get more attention to this program, is we can call it Reach, or we can call it Fit to Lead.
Right.
But it is incorporating very much like what the Adecco company did, is having this opportunity for employees to incorporate fitness with leadership lessons.
Yeah. So
instead of, sitting in a workshop and, talking about stress management and so forth, is incorporating both of them together.
Nice.
So we have, a program that's proven, lots of great examples and testimonials of people who've participated, men and women, of making this connection between fitness and leadership. So our Fit to Lead program, it's on our website. Performance Bridge talks about all the components. We've done everything from quite a book club kind of thing, where the book is purchased and we do webinars on each chapter, or maybe a few select chapters, or the whole 9 yards over a period of time, like we did with Adecco for a 6-month period. Every month we did. Brought it together, 65 people.
And it really does. I know from the work I do, I've done similar work with our programs too. And it sounds a lot of alignment there, that you just see the team grow and they become so much more tighter and cohesive as a team as well. Right.
Definitely.
And that again supports their culture and, their performance as a team. Right. And cohesion. Right. And yeah. And then Ashley, anything you want to add to what Kari just said in terms of what you provide to organizations, or currently your level of service?
No, I mean, it's a passion of ours to be able to provide this. When we started it, we said, we want to keep having fun with this. That was our number one goal. And
absolutely.
It's super fun to work with people on what they're up to in their lives. And
I suspect, as it does for me, it feeds your soul as well. When you see there's nothing, it's a gift to be able to help support someone prioritize and care for their well-being, because it's not just that, it's the reciprocal, benefits across the board, right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm sure you've given our listeners, especially leaders, a lot to think about and put into practice. And so how might someone get in touch with each of you?
Yeah, probably the easiest way is to the website. It's theperformancebridge.com.
Theperformancebridge.com. Okay.
And you can obviously get our book on Amazon, but it's also on our website.
And would you want to say the book name again, please?
It's called Reach. Using Fitness to Grow Your Leadership, a guided journal for women.
Okay.
The book is directed toward women. It applies to men. I would suggest.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Yes. Nice. She's showing it on the screen there for those who are listening. Yeah. Reach, Using Fitness to Grow Your Leadership, a journal for women. So is it just for women, or can men benefit from the book as well?
We need a deliberate decision. Yeah, the lessons apply. My recommendation is, for the men listening, is buy it for your daughters, your sisters, your wives.
Yeah, and read it too in the process, right?
System and learn along with them.
Absolutely. Nice. Yeah. Absolutely. And then Ashley, again, the same, just for your website, or do you have a combined website between you, or?
Yes, I'm also listed on the Performance Bridge website, but you can also find me on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. Perfect. Great. And we'll link up everything in the show notes as well you've provided us with. So to our listeners, thank you for tuning in and supporting our podcast. And be sure to look for upcoming episodes of Executive Wellness Unplugged via our podcast page on our website, workplacewellnesscoe.com, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. So thanks again, Ashley and Kari, and stay healthy, everyone. And as I like to say, keep it real and keep on moving your body. Okay, bye for now. Take care.
Thanks, Lisa.